Welcome everyone to another episode of Come Mod with Me, which airs every Wednesday, so keep in tuned. If you haven't done so already, I would suggest subscribing to my channel just so you don't miss an episode, as there will be a couple extra modding tutorials that will go along with this series. I might put in a few extra here or there that are kind of standalone tutorials, but for this main tutorial, I'm going to be going over the whole process of how to create a mod, and we'll be doing some basic stuff at first, but we'll get into some advanced topics on modding later. And if you haven't seen my first episode, I would suggest doing that now because it's the installation and setup which gives you the ability and all the tools you need to be able to create a good mod successfully. There is one other tool which I didn't mention, which I will today, is GIMP. You want an imaging program. GIMP is a free open source imaging program that'll help you be able to create the textures of your mobs and your blocks and your items. So I would suggest getting one of those, and I'll teach you how to use GIMP later on. But right now, what we're going to be doing in this episode is we're going to be doing the planning of the mod, as well as some basic setup to get the mod started. And we'll do some we'll initiate an item, we'll declare an item, we'll make a recipe for that item, we'll give it a texture, we'll set up the mod file. So we'll be doing that all today. In order to have a good mod, you need to have a plan. I've seen a lot of mods out there that don't have a plan. There's no end goal, there's no reason for it being there, and then people don't care about it. There's no focus from the modder, and therefore there's no focus from the community. When I look for a mod, I want to find a mod that has a goal, that knows what it wants to do and accomplish. And that's the same thing that we need to do as modders. If you want to be a successful modder, that's what you need to do. So the first thing is to find out what the purpose of this mod is. Why are you writing it? What's the purpose? Is it to add more creatures to the game? Do you feel there's an unfair advantage with I don't know, redstone? Maybe redstone's too easy, maybe it needs to be harder. Maybe iron is not the best, maybe iron is too powerful or not powerful enough. Maybe you want to add some more ores to the game. Maybe you want to change the gameplay, add a shield, who knows, change the API, for goodness sakes. But that's what you need to know. You need to know what the purpose is, and also what the end goal is. Where is this going? What is going to define version 1? I mean, what we're doing is basically doing a work in progress, a WIP mod. So 0.01 or 0.0.1. Okay, we're going to be going through the stages, but what's it going to take to get to version 1? And is version 1 the end all, or are you going to have some more goals to reach to get to version 2 or version 3 or who knows what? So you need to know the end goal as well as the reason why and where you're trying to get to. That's the most important part of creating a mod, otherwise no one's going to want to play it because it doesn't make sense to them. The next question you need to ask, is this going to be a standalone mod? Think of Better Than Wolves. Pretty much it's not compatible with much at all. It's an awesome mod, don't get me wrong, but it's a standalone mod. You play this mod versus multiplying or adding mods together. You have mod packs, and that's made of a lot of smaller mods that just make small tweaks to the game. And that's what you want to find out. Do you want to just add a couple items or tool set to the game, like obsidian armor? Or do you actually want to create a whole standalone mod? I mean, that's what I'm trying to do with my current mod, Better Minecraft mod. I'm trying to make it so that it's all-encompassing. It's got a lot of features to it, and that's what I like. But if that's not what you want to do, then that's great. Make sure you know if you want it to be a standalone mod or if you want it to be able to incorporate other mods. Next, write down what kind of blocks, items, achievements, etc. that you want to add to the game. Do you want to change the gameplay? What's the sort of things you want to add to the game? And last is your ideas. This is where you just put everything down. Try to write down the idea that you have for the mod. Maybe you want it so that when you run over a certain block, it springs you into the air. Or maybe when you step onto a block, it actually sucks you in like a liquid and you can't get out. There are ways to do that. There's a guy who made a tornado mod where there is a tornado that starts, and all of a sudden it starts picking up blocks and then throws them, and they land, and they move. It's quite interesting ideas out there, but they're all possible. And just write those ideas down. And once you've gone through this planning stage, I suggest taking 15 minutes at least to do this, so you have a clear idea of what you want to do. And once you've gone through the planning stage, you can then begin to mod because you know what you need to do now. Alright, now that we're finished with the planning stage, let's move on to some basic modding. What you need to do is open up Eclipse. And once you do, you'll be at this page here, if you follow the steps that we did in episode 1. Now you need to open up client source.net.minecraft.source, and in here are all the different class files that you are going to be editing, modifying, changing, rearranging. Okay? Now let's begin by adding a new file. So come up here, click this down arrow, down to File, and then you want to click on the arrow next to Client, next to Source, next to Net, Minecraft, Source. Or you could just type this out at the top. The next thing, we need to add the name. Now, it's always, you need to first do mod underscore before you add the name, and we're going to call it tut. I'll call it tutorial. Important thing you need to do is add .java. If you don't add .java, it'll make it a text file, not a Java file. You need it to be a Java file. Click Finish. And now you can notice, if you notice here, there's nothing in this file. It's blank. It's because you created a blank class file or Java file. I'm going to copy and paste this. I'll make this available either in the description below or in Pastebin. I'll see where I put it, but it'll be in the description below where you can get a hold of all of the source code that I'm putting on here. Okay? So in here I'm going to copy all this, and I'm going to, whoops, no, not that. Control C, Control V. Now let me tell you what this does. That's right, we call it tutorial. Okay. And there's an error, but we'll get to that in a minute. What this does is it tells Java and the program what package you're using, minecraft.net.source, which is this package up here. So it's telling you you're using all of these files here. Okay. Then it's going to declare the class mod underscore tutorial. Now this part here is very important. This is what tells it to extend base mod, which is mod loader. This lets you use all of the mod loader functions as well as variables. So that's why this is important to extend this. Otherwise you won't be able to use the mod loader protocol, which we'll be doing. The next thing we see here is public string get version. Now I'm actually going to move this down to the bottom. I prefer it down at the bottom, out of the way. And it's declaring a string get version. And this is going to tell Minecraft what version of your mod this is. So to return a string, you need to have quotes. This is an empty string, returns nothing. You can say version 0.0.1, which is what I'm doing. Put whatever you want in there. And when we load, you'll see what I mean when it actually uses the version here as part of your it tells the program what it is, so that when you load it you can actually see what version of the mod you're running. Okay, next up we see here public void load. Now you can leave this blank, you can put things in here. I prefer to do something slightly different, which is declare public mod tutorial. Oops. There. I prefer to put all my code in here. In my opinion, I think it makes it, I don't know. It must be the C++ in me that does this, but I prefer to do it like this. You could put them in the load folder. Some people do that, but I'm just showing you the way that I make mods. So I'm just going to ignore the void load. In fact, I'll just put it like that. So there's nothing in it. Now, that's the very basics to setting up a mod. Right, now let's code a basic item. We're going to make a sword, a redstone sword, and to do that we need to declare a variable. So the first thing we'll do is type public, oops, not public, public, which tells the code that this is actually a public variable, so any class file within this package can access it. Next is static. In other words, the information is not going to change. And then final, saying that this is actually the final this is the final item. There's going to be no changes to the makeup of this. It's going to be final. You can't add it to a set of code to change what it is. This will always be a redstone sword. And we're going to declare what type of thing it is, what type of variable. And it's an item. And now we'll put the name. We'll call it sword red. Okay. And don't forget the semicolon. Semicolons are very important. They tell Java that you have finished a line of code, because a line of code can go through several lines. Alright, so we have sword red. The next thing we need to do, and the reason why we have an error, is this variable has never been initialized. In other words, it's not pointing to anything. Nothing's inside of the variable, and it has to have something inside of it because it's a final variable. So to do that, type static, enter, curly bracket, and then type sword red equals new item sword. The reason why we're choosing item sword is so that it has the same properties as the rest of the swords in Minecraft. You have iron sword, wood sword, etc. And so this is going to have the same properties. It's going to be able to attack, it's going to be able to be enchanted, and it's going to be able to have a damage versus a certain type of entity, and it will also be able to break web. Okay, it's an item sword, and it's only stackable by one. All those properties are going to be attached to the sword red variable. Now within these brackets, you need to add an item ID. And what this item ID does is it makes it so that it's a distinct number for that item, for that variable. So you can refer to the item either by the variable or by the variable sword red, or by the number 5000. 5000 is a safe number to use. I don't think it's not used by anything in Minecraft because that's way farther than Minecraft. But I believe it's a perfect variable to start off with. So we'll start with 5000, move to 501 for the next item that we make, etc. Good thing to note, blocks at this point can only go up to ID 256. Items can only go to ID, I think it's 12,000. I'm not sure. It's pretty high. So we can make a lot of items before we have to worry about running out of IDs. Now once you have the ID, you need to add the type of material that this sword is made out of. And I'll tell you about that in a minute. So you want to type enum tool material dot, and it's going to have several things here. You have emerald, gold, iron, stone, wood. Emerald is another word for diamond, and so it'll have the same properties of diamond, gold, iron, stone, or wood. I want to choose gold because gold has a really high enchantability. It breaks easier, but has some pretty cool things you can do with it. So we'll have it the same properties of gold. In a later tutorial, I will tell you how to make your own material type, which has its own variables. It could be very strong and have 2 uses, or it could be very weak and have 1,000,000 uses. I'll teach you how to do that in a later tutorial. But for now, we'll do this. The next thing we need to do is type dot set item name. And then it's asking you what string you want to set the name as. All lowercase, type sword red. And that's just giving it a name. And don't forget colon. And now, as you can see here, it's been initialized, so there's no more error up here. And this will always stay the same. It'll always be item number 5000. It'll always be of the tool material gold, and always have the set name of sword red. we've initialized that variable, but we can't actually use the variable. We can't actually use sword red because we have to give it a name, we have to give it a texture, and we have to give it a recipe. So let's start with the name. Start with mod loader. Oops. Dot add name. Click here. Now the object is sword red. Oops. And we have the string, which is going to be the name. Redstone sword. Don't forget the colon. And that's how we add the name. So whenever you hover over the icon, this redstone sword will appear. Oh, redstone. Redstone. There we go. My bad. It's the little tooltip that pops up when you hover over an item. The next thing we're going to do is add its icon. So to do that, type sword red dot icon index equals, and we'll just put a random number of 40. I don't know what that's going to be, but we'll just put 40. I'll teach you later how to make your own textures, but for now, what this is saying is the icon that sword red is going to use, the texture, is going to be number 40 of the item's image in the GUI folder. I'm not sure what it is. It could be a feather for all I know. Right, next thing is we're going to add a recipe. So to do that, you type mod loader dot add recipe, and you can see here it says item stack and a obj, which stands for object. Get out of here. Hit escape. It does a couple nasty things if you don't hit escape. What you need to do is type new capital item stack parentheses, and in those parentheses you want to write the item you want to create, which is a sword red. Now you can change that with any item in the game if you wanted to. Let's say you wanted to make it a stone sword. Just type item dot sto. Oh, that's right. Dot sw, and then click stone, comma 1. What that's saying is in this recipe you want to create a new item, sword stone, and only one of that item. But obviously we don't want to create a stone sword. We want to create a redstone sword, or a sword red. And you don't need item because this variable is in this file and it's public, so you can access it from here. The next thing is this is the object that will be used to create that item. So type new capital object block square parentheses. Oops, forgot something. Squiggly brackets, and then inside here, think of this as the crafting table. You can either do two sets of quotes, which would more than likely be inside the player crafting table, or three quotes, which means that this has to be crafted within the workbench. And if you created a new workbench, you would just keep adding quotes, basically. What this tells you is here's the top, here's the middle, oops, and here's the bottom. There are 9 crafting squares available here. So what we're going to tell it is that as long as there's an R on top of an R on top of an S, you can make this item redstone sword. But we don't know what R is or what S is, and so in order to define what R stands for, type single quotes and an R with inside the single quotes and a comma, and then tell it what it is. It is an item dot redstone. But we don't know what S is, so hit another comma, single quotes S, and S is an item dot stick. And what this says is that S equals stick, R equals redstone, so a redstone stick. 2 redstones on top of a stick will create a redstone sword. Don't forget the colon there. And as you can see, there's no errors. Oops. We have no errors whatsoever. So we've actually created this item successfully, we've added a recipe for it, and now we can actually test it. But just so you know, it's not going to look like a sword. I don't know what 40 is in the icon index, but we'll find out. Now in order to test this, you need to go up to here where the play button is. Press it, hit OK, and what this will do, it'll run Minecraft. So I'm going to make it bigger, single player, delete that, that was a test world I made. Create a new world, survival. I'm actually going to make it creative because I have to find redstone, and I don't want to spend the amount of time to find redstone to make sure that this recipe works. Let's come into here since we're in creative mode. Going to grab a workbench. Going to grab some sticks. And I'm going to grab some redstone. There we are. Now, if I put the crafting table down, and I put 2 redstone on top of a stick, I will get gunpowder. No, I will actually get a redstone sword. And to show you that this works as a sword, I'll go down and I'll kill a couple mobs. And remember, we had this used as a gold sword. So it'll have as many uses as a gold sword, it'll damage as well as a gold sword, and it'll enchant like a gold sword. Which, speaking of which, let's enchant it first. Okay. Oops. I'll use 5. What is it? It is a redstone sword with knockback 1. As I said, we're going to create our own texture later, but right now this is good enough. So I'll come over to this little sheep. This actually could be a pretty good prank. I'm going to attack it, and it's going to knock it back. And because it's a gold sword, 2 hits will kill it. Let's come over to this cow. Oh, 3 hits for the cow. Oops, come here, pig. All 3 hits for the pig, too. And 1, well, that was like 2 hits for that cow. But anyway, as you can tell, it is definitely a sword. It has the same properties as a sword. It could be enchanted like a sword. It could defend like a sword. But it looks like clay, or is that gunpowder? I don't know. I think it's gunpowder. Yeah, looks like gunpowder. And on the creative menu you can find it as well. It is right there. But I'll tell you how to use textures next time. But as for now, that's all that we're going to be accomplishing today. I think it's quite a bit. So I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something, and stay tuned for the next episode. We'll be going over textures, how to change this texture to its own, adding a few cool properties to it, and doing a couple other things. So hopefully you enjoyed this tutorial. Anyway, this is XaedBlade signing off. Don't forget to subscribe, to like, and to comment. It helps my channel out, lets me know you want to see more of my modding tutorials, and it helped me out a lot. So peace. Cheers.